Good afternoon, good evening. I have returned. I'm back from Gamescom, and today we're going to look at the patch notes for patch 5.16, Divine Dragon. As you can probably hear, my voice is completely dead. I just came back from the event, basically, had a few hours of sleep, and I'm been a bit of land flu, as well as having casted a lot. So excuse the slightly ruined voice. I hope it won't take away from the content, from the changes we will talk about here. And we also have some other stuff to talk about after that, but one after the other. We'll begin with the patch notes here. The patch notes already happened 2 days ago, so most of you should be up to date with what's been changed, at least from a patch notes side, from the normal patch notes. So we're not going to do the watching the patch notes first. I've skipped through them a little bit, looked at the important parts, and I will go right for the review here. In this patch, we have quite a lot of new skins that we can look at here very quickly. We first have the Chef Vulcan skin that you can see very close up here. This is the community requested one. Has a lot of voice lines submitted by the community. Has a lot of animations surrounding that as well. The meatball on the 3, 2 cans of special sauce on the ultimate that crash onto the ground, and then there's pasta flying around and mushrooms and whatnot. So a lot of nice details. And here a quick appeal from my side, basically, as this skin was community requested and Hi-Rez said, we're not going to make enough profits, not worth it. If you want more community requested skins, then it makes sense to buy the skin. I'm not saying go buy the skin, but if you want community requested skins, if you think this kind of style is something cool, then you basically vote with your money here. If Hi-Rez sees that this skin is not getting bought, that there's not enough interest in it, there will probably not be something like that again. If it's bought a lot, then there's very likely going to be more stuff like this. So you choose. And then we have a Midnight Raven Isis, also an excellent skin in my opinion. Looks very, very cool. I would almost say my favorite this patch, even over Chef Vulcan, but just because of the visual style, not for the joke, not for the voice lines and everything, the effects of the skin are just really, really, really nice. And with these effects, you, for example, have a special emote as well, where she rides around on the moon. She also has like other animations where, for example, this thing on the back pops up during her one, and the whole sky turns into a night sky. They weren't quite sure on the patch notes if this is for everyone or just for the player who plays as himself, but either way, it looks really, really cool, and it makes the whole map darker. Could be a bit annoying if you play against her. There's also Admiral Wukong, and this guy, you can see a little bit in the background here, has a ship as his ultimate. He literally goes onto a ship. And yeah, I don't need to say anything else. The voice pack is pretty decent as well. Pretty cool skin too. We have Titanium Tracker Shibalanke, who in my opinion is alright, but not the best skin. Has some electronic effects. Then we have the Heatsink Billy skin, which some of you have already seen through various teasers from Hi-Rez. In-game it looks very cool as well. The animations are very nice, very electronic, but in a cool way with like spikes and crystals and all of that kind of stuff. So I really like this one. And last but not least, we have our Divine Dragon Bellona. That's just one of the forms. That's just the whip form. With every ability you use except the ultimate, she goes into another form. You can see all 3 here a little bit. Maybe this picture will show them a little bit better. Here you go. This is the hammer form. This is the normal sword form, as well as the sword and shield form, where she just gets that shield. And here we have the whip form. And they apparently will all have different voice lines as well. It didn't quite work out on the patch notes, so I'm not quite sure if that was actually already the different voice lines or if it just glitched. But that is something we'll have in game 2. When she uses the ultimate, we see that little big dragon in the background, which flies up from where the banner is placed and stays there for the duration of the ultimate, as well as having a special emote where she can have the dragon fly around the map. Also, I think visible for everyone on the map. And then we have a few different cosmetics here. Latam 5th year anniversary, avatar, moon and stars, global mode, midnight masquerade, loading frame, pollination pedestal, pollination recall skin, the fall loading screen, Chef Vulcan announcer pack as well, and Jeff and Barra announcer pack. I really hope this one turned out well, because it should have some pretty funny lines if it did. And then we have the new addition to the awesome chest here with Star Spangled Nike. And the Fantasy Points store changes once again. Soldier, Fortune, Ares, Chef's Special, Capri, and Soul Taker Hades. We have a bug fix where diminishing returns were not applied properly with ramp up CC like Kronos has, for example. And we have a fix for Classic Joust, Tower Collision with Tower, Collision with Towers being fixed. Then a few UI fixes. The first one here is especially important. Fix an issue where there was a few seconds delay after a timed queue finished matchmaking, but before going into the match lobby. And this delay leads to you basically calling your role and sometimes the lobby not being there and that kind of stuff, which is really frustrating because you can be first to call a role and still not get it. Then there is some fix to the guard builder, some icons from Rana Tosca being added to the guard builder, and some frame and badge fixes as well as quest progress not being shown. Some spectator fixes and some console fixes too. Then there's various fixes for the gods tier, one for the Agni skin, then we have one for Apuash with the ultimate projectiles going through walls, but not going through player-made walls yet, which I think would have actually been a cool mechanic, just like being able to just stop that in one way, but unfortunately not, so nope. Athena could apparently attack cancel, basic attack cancel with her ultimate. Interesting strategy, must be really annoying to use, but that's no longer possible. Kamazots gets a fix where he doesn't see targets that he shouldn't be seeing anymore. Hachiman gets a death animation fix. Kumbhakana gets a fix with epic uppercut and interaction with Daji and Ares pulse, where basically targets would fly around the map. And Morrigan gets various fixes showing the gold properly when transformed. The chances of not being able to use abilities after transforming are lowered. It can still happen apparently, but should not happen as often. And the camera doesn't bounce around after transforming anymore. And that brings us to the item section. Now the first one here is Berserker's shield, and I think that is the big deal this patch. We're going from Gladiator shield, getting additional effects, to Berserker's shield. 1,700 gold, 25 physical power, 15 physical protection, and 15% attack speed. So this is already better for the passive effect than Gladiator's shield was, simply because it comes with 15% attack speed, meaning that you will be able to heal better through it. Hitting an enemy with a basic attack restores 1% health and mana. Basic attacks that hit all enemies in melee range restore 0.5% health and mana on every enemy after the first hit. Melee range is important here, so this doesn't count for Izanami, for example. So you are safe in that regard, and I think that's very crucial. This item will primarily be used by basic attacking solo laners, obviously, that's the purpose, but it's interesting as I think there would still be enough other purposes for it too. It's kind of the attack speed sustain item right now, the one that you want to go for over RC basically in any situation. And as such, there may be some niche cases where you can somehow fit this on a hunter because the stats overall, again, are very, very good. And it should give you a trading advantage, though you should drop off in later healing for it. And I think it could also be somehow useful for basic attacking assassins or warriors in the jungle in general as well. And this is also something that we will probably see a lot in duel. So I think this is nice. I think this is a cool introduction of a new item, and we will see if it has to be balanced. The stats right now look very, very good for the price. So I could imagine this being adjusted eventually, especially with the mana returned as well. And with the AoE effect, not to mention that, Bellona is just going to be, rocking it. And it comes with a patch with the Bellona skin, so, what can I say? Many predicted this. I'm not surprised. But fair enough, we haven't seen Bellona in a while anyways. Then there's Gem of Isolation getting a nerf. Decreased health from 250 to 100. It was just a bit too rewarding for the price and the effect and everything. But at the same time, I think Gem of Isolation is still not popular on every god. It's just very efficient, very effective on specific gods like Poseidon. So I can understand why the change was made, but they have to be careful not to nerf it too much into one direction, because then eventually no one can really pick it up anymore. But I think the health reduction here is still fine because it has a good amount of power right now as well. It's a very good item. Mystical Mail. This one was interesting. Mystical Mail encourages users to get close with its strong defensive stats and aura damage. We wanted to further encourage and allow players to get close with this item, and 20% crowd control reduction is a stat that can accomplish that. So the choice for 20% crowd control reduction here being that you are able to get into the fight more, and the other reason for it obviously being that 20% crowd control reduction is something that makes an item better, but it's not insanely high valued by most. So it's not going to be a mandatory pickup just because it has crowd control reduction. If this was 20% cooldown reduction, this item would be absolutely ridiculous. The thing for me with Mystical Mail is that the item is still very, very good, very strong effect. The problem is you want to typically pick it up towards the earlier stages of the game, and at that point, it has a very high price tag. And that doesn't really change with the crowd control reduction, but I still think there's more value in picking it up now, especially combining it with other crowd control reduction items on certain guards should make for very limited CC against you, and you being able to dish out a lot more damage with a tanky character. Rage gets a price reduction of 2,500 to 2,400. That's it. Doesn't really change anything in the bigger picture. It's a bit more accessible, and that's it. Talisman of Energy, decreased cost from 2,250 to 2,150. I think Talisman of Energy is really not a bad item anymore in regards to its stats. The problem is still the same thing as before. It's super minion dependent, but it can work at towers. It can work when you're pressuring the enemy with the minion wave coming in, if you can time that right. But then the enemy also knows what you're doing. I think, especially with this price drop, you can consider this more and more and more. And I know it's already been picked up in the SPL, so it's not like this is completely ridiculously bad or anything. And this might just nudge it a little bit more in that direction, though I still think it's not gonna be replacing your standard aura items anytime soon, just because of how it works. And that brings us to guard balance. Agni gets a nerf, decrease the early damage of rain fire. First rank going down from 160 to 140 instead. Absolutely understandable. He's been having a lot of pressure, and taking down that early a little bit is fine. Agni, for the longest time, has been a very average guard, but has been doing very, very well with various items that just synergize strongly with his kit that have been getting buffs, especially cooldown reduction focused items, etc. And that's something that needs to be counterbalanced a little bit, so very understandable. Porsche is interesting because apparently he also had a nerf that didn't get broadcasted, but now he's getting a lot of nerfs. So he was doing decently in Conquest after all these buffs, and it was shown that he was performing pretty well, more than expected, I guess. And in other games, in other game modes, he was performing even better. So this, for one of the first times, is a nerf that is more targeted towards other modes than Conquest. Conquest is still relevant, but it's not the main reason here. And it's surprising, because that was never Hyra's concept of nerfing and buffing so far. Undead Surge gets a 2-second cooldown increase from 12 seconds to 14 seconds. Corpse Explosion gets the initial damage decreased from 90 to 170 to 60 to 100. This was already included, but not already done, but not updated in the notes. And the cooldown of Empty the Crypts is increased from 90 to 100. I think that's once again going to make life very rough for Approach in Conquest, especially the Undead Surge part here, will have an impact for sure. And, well, he will be more around the average in other modes, but I think it might just make him almost, not completely, disappear from Conquest again. And we have Apollo. He got the knockback on his ultimate back. It didn't really change much, so he's getting more buffs. And I don't like that because I don't like playing against Apollo. And I still think that one of his abilities is absolutely ridiculous, and that is Serenade, the Mesmerize, and that actually gets a buff. The duration is increased from 0.7 to 2.3 to 1.1 to 2.3, so the early CC is a lot longer. Now the thing with Apollo is you level this second, so this will have an impact around mid-game mostly, and well, most people level it second. And what I don't like about this ability is that the CC is so quickly that there's almost no ability in the game that can respond to it. There are very few outliers, but it's just pretty much an instant mess. It's just a mess, yeah, but if you don't have dot damage, and Apollo doesn't have that unless he builds Crusher, which would be really stupid, then you're just gonna be CC'd if he runs away from you. And this interrupts this distance building. To me personally, is very annoying, and the fact that it comes with more protections on top of that is even more annoying, and buffing that to a longer duration, not a fan. The other change, then again, it doesn't bother me too much. The moves increased movement speed from 5 to 25% to 15 to 25%. So a little bit more movement speed early, but at the same time, with the increased mez, it means he has an even easier time to get away, and that's just going to make him super annoying to play against. I think these buffs will just mean that especially split push Apollo is going to be a very frequent choice. And who enjoys that, really? Maybe Loki players, but that's about it. Chaac is getting an addition to his passive, and I think that's actually a really cool one. Overflow. In addition to allowing the next ability cast to cost 0 mana when fully stacked, whatever ability is fired to consume the stacks has its cooldown reduced by 2 seconds. So now you have to not only consider, okay, which ability am I going to use first, save some mana, but you also have to consider which ability do I want again soonish. Do I need the heal sooner? Do I want to use the 1 again for more pressure, more aggression, maybe even the 2? And that allows for a lot more flexibility. Even the ult, 2 seconds, whatever, but it's a really cool thing. Never mind. I'm actually not quite sure how it triggers on the ult anyways. I don't think you'll ever use it for the ult, realistically. But I think this is a cool effect. It happens quite often with that 5 hits that you have to have for overflow. I don't think it's going to make Chaac insane or anything, but gives him even more lane pressure especially, and that's going to be very, very interesting early stages of the game for Chaac. Wukong gets a whole set of buffs here. He gets his magic card shell buff, bonus damage from 2 minions and jungle camps from 25% to 30%. It's going to change a little bit. The question is always, does it help him fully clear something that he doesn't fully clear otherwise? And that might be the case here. So we'll see. But at the same time, he will have more opposition in the solo lane as well, due to the fact that there is now a basic attacker shield that Chaac could actually make funny use of. We'll see about that. Then we have Master as well. Decrease cooldown from 12 seconds to 10 seconds. So even more pressure as well as clear. That will absolutely help him, make him more of a lane bully again. And that might be annoying because Wukong can be really annoying when he's strong. And 72 transformations gets a damage increase from the Ox form only on early levels. 50 to 210 goes up to 70 to 210. So a little bit more pressure there. And that overall leads to more damage across the board and more clear. That is going to be interesting in terms of how much it does for Wukong, because we've seen this over and over with Wukong, that these kind of small nerfs kind of push him over the edge to being a very dominant pick. And dominant pick, Wukong, also a bit annoying. And last but not least, we have Poseidon here. Tidal Surge fixed an issue with Tidal Surge moving deployable, which caused its collision height to be shorter than intended. And that means if you use another ability to knock him up, namely the Kraken, it will still hit now. And the knockup height for Release the Kraken is normalized from 300 to 400 to 375 at all ranks. And now, you can hit Tidal Surge after the Kraken. Good that you have this synergy between the abilities. Otherwise, a bit unfortunate in regards to the timing. And that's a nice fix. Other than that, I have a few things I'd like to briefly address. One question that came up in the last days. Yes, I pinched my finger during working out. No, I did not paint it black. And that's going to heal off eventually, don't worry. Also, on a rather sad note, today there has been a shooting at a Madden event in Florida, in Jacksonville, if I recall correctly. So very tragic news for the gaming world. I will not go all political here. If you want to see more of my thoughts on that, you can check my Twitter at DukeSloth TV. I do the more political about there. I will leave everyone to their opinion here, but obviously my feelings are with the victims and the families of the victims here. And it's really shocking that something like that still happens. On the note of HRX in that regard, I don't think anyone going should be too worried, because Hi-Res has been pretty good with security so far. And DreamHack, at least the ones I've been to, have been pretty good. I've heard some people saying that at least in America that's not the case. But I'm also pretty sure that after these tragic events, there will be more security at gaming events in general. So don't be too afraid of that. And last but not least, to end on a little bit more positive note, there is a sale on Steam at the moment for the first 2 Darksiders games. I had the chance to try the third one at Gamescom, and so far it felt very good. So if you want to have something nice to play, want to play some single players, you can check that out. And that's it for today. Again, sorry about my voice. Still very dead. Still gonna try and be less sick. I'll probably still make videos because it's not too hard right now. But for now, I'll be signing off. With that, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this overview of the patch notes, even if it's a little late. And we'll talk more about other stuff coming to SMITE very soon, as well as other changes, and look into the ones that we got here in a little more detail. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, click the sub button with the bell. It drives you out. Other than that, see you for the next one tomorrow. DukeSloth out.